I'm a little pissed off right now, and I'll tell you why. I watched Ready Player One a couple of years ago, like probably a lot of you did, when it came out in 2018. I watched it. I thought it was okay. It was just another one of those video game nostalgia exploitation films, taking advantage of people's nostalgia. I didn't really think much of it. It was just another movie like Pixels or something like that. I didn't know at the time that this movie was based on a book that was written in about 2012. And that's where the problem lies. I don't want to be that guy, the guy that's always saying, oh, the book is better than the movie was trash, don't watch the movie, read the book, you don't know anything about the movie until you've read the book. I really don't want to be that guy. But in this case, what seemed like a pretty cool movie was a complete travesty. This book, Ready Player One, is completely different from the movie in so many ways. Yes, great, there's a virtual reality world, and there's a contest, and they're trying to get the keys and get the golden egg. That basics is there in the movie. But when you actually read the book, you realize that this book is so much more than just a video game nostalgia exploitation movie. This book is a deep, well-written, dystopian science fiction novel. It starts out with the main character, Wade Watts. He's known as Parzival in the game. Wade is an orphan. His father left or died when he was very young. His mother had to resort to online pornography and prostitution in order to just barely pay the bills, and then she died. He was left as an orphan. He had to go move in with his horrible old aunt, Harry Potter style, closet under the stairs. He had to live in the laundry room, and she would take his food stamps and use them for herself and her boyfriends, and leave Wade to fend for himself, to eat, to survive. He would have to go out and dig through dumpsters, and he would have to build things and fix things. He became kind of a hacker and a computer expert, because from a very young age he was having to find broken computers in the dumpsters and fix them up and sell them to people just so that he could eat. His access to the actual oasis was very limited. The only access that he had was from his school-supplied VR goggles and haptic gloves, which only allowed him access to the school planet, where he could go and do his daily school. That's the crux of who the character is, and it's not represented very well in here at all. They make a passing reference to the fact that he's poor, but the movie starts out some way into the book, skipping over all of that character development and going right into the first contest, which apparently Parzival, Wade, had already won the first key, and they don't tell you about that, and now they're trying to win the first challenge, which is this big race thing with dinosaurs and King Kong and all this kind of stuff, which never happened in the book, by the way. The contests were much more cerebral. They were much more based on figuring out hidden Easter eggs in obscure pieces of 70s and 80s media, movies, TV, books, Dungeons and Dragons, all kinds of really obscure stuff, really deep puzzles that they had to solve based on an extensive knowledge of nerd culture. And none of that is represented in this movie. This is an action movie set in a VR world. And you know what? It was fine. If you hadn't read the book, which I suspect many of you haven't read the book, you probably thought the movie was okay, worth chopping down some popcorn on a summer afternoon. But that's all it is. This book is so much more. The other thing that I really object to is the way that they mixed up the characters and changed the storylines completely. The character Artemis, his love interest, she was badass in this book. She was really cool. She was a strong female character. There was no need to notch her up to level 11. They took her in the movie and made her the star of several of the action sequences, taking away the major story. Wade was supposed to have sacrificed himself, come up with a plan to infiltrate the evil corporation IOI by having himself indentured as a slave to the company and then hacking them from the inside. They completely bypassed that entire storyline and had Artemis be arrested by IOI instead, and have her break in and drop the big shield and stop IOI from doing what they were doing. I am not in any way anti-SJW. I believe that everybody from every color and stripe deserves to have their representation in a movie. But when you blatantly disrespect the source material, which is awesome, in order to inject a specific storyline that you believe needs to be told, I don't think that belongs in movies. I think you need to tell new stories that involve the subject matter that you want to tell. I get it. It's fine. They're trying to broaden the audience. The source material, I'm really struggling with this. I do not want to come off as in any way bigoted. Artemis was an awesome character in this book. She was so badass. And they just did not need to dial that up to level 11 and make her be like the kick-ass superhero of the movie. They totally undermined her entire story arc, which was the fact that in real life she was vulnerable and afraid of people because of her disfigurement, and the love story between Wade falling in love with her for who she really is. Even though he had never met her, he knew he was in love with her, and when he did meet her, they finally came together, and all of that story was completely undermined by the fact that they made her into this kick-ass superhero, which was just completely unnecessary because all of the action in this movie is dialed up to 11, and it doesn't need to be. This movie is not about action. This is a deep science fiction movie, a commentary on humanity. The world had come to a place where they had pretty much run out of all their energy resources. They had pretty much complete unemployment. Like, so many people were unemployed. There was no middle class. There was only the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich. And pretty much everybody lived inside the Oasis and did all their business in VR because there was nothing left to live for in the real world. And that is completely glazed over in this movie here, and it's such a missed opportunity because dystopian science fictions are super popular. Look at movies like Divergent or The Hunger Games or Ender's Game. So many of these dystopian science fictions do really well because people love that entire concept, that entire genre, and they completely glazed over this to make it a cartoon action movie, which just was completely not necessary and not called for with respect to this great work of art. The audiobook, and that's the way that I listen to this, the audiobook is read by Will Wheaton, and that's no mistake. I think he was chosen specifically because he's a nerd icon. He's so well known for being a representative of the nerd community. And this book is so much more about the obscure, nerdy trivia that most people don't care about. And I think that's what Steven Spielberg was going for. He made this movie for a completely different audience than the book. I think this book is technically a young adult novel, or it was marketed that way, but this book is really for 40-year-old guys like me who remember Family Ties and 60s anime and all kinds of cheesy 80s sci-fi and cartoons and things like that. This book references so much stuff, not just video games. It references the Atari 2600, but it references obscure computers like you wouldn't believe the stuff that is referenced in this relatively small book. In the course of, 374 pages. In the course of 374 pages, the author does such a great job of world building and putting together the characters and the character arcs It's absolutely unbelievable that he was able to paint such a broad picture with so few words, and the complete opposite is true with the movie. In 2.5 hours, they basically tell you nothing about the characters. Everybody is thrown together for this big riotous adventure, and it's over. And that's it. And that's my rant. So guys, listen to the audiobook, read the book. If you've got to watch the movie again, I think you're going to be pissed off like me. I just watched this movie again last night before I made this video, and I was so disappointed. I remember thinking it was half decent when I first saw it. I read the book was amazing, and when I went back and watched the movie, I was so disappointed in this movie. I feel like I'm probably never going to watch it again. So this, forget it. Anyways, guys, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Hit that little bell notification icon so that you'll be notified every time I put up a new video. And hey, stay classy.